Hello everybody and welcome to a new episode of Lazio Lounge. I'm Vittorio Campanile, with me Alistair Mackenzie. Alistair, finally Biglia left Lazio. Are you happy?
Not delighted. I suppose the question here is if Biglia actually realises he has left Lazio, given his behaviour since, where he was signing autographs in a Milan shirt and they asked him to say something and he said Forza Lazio to the fans. So he's not got off to the best start with his new Milan fans. But it's quite good fun, really, isn't it? They probably realise he's joking, maybe.
I think he wasn't joking. He's going to pay for that, I think. But
yeah. Well, I mean, they're going to be happy enough about Bonucci at the moment anyway that they probably will kind of let it slip by. But no, in terms of am I happy? I'm not happy to lose one of our best players, but at the same time, given that he was always going to go, it's good. It's nice to see him gone so that we can move on and get the 20 million euros and try and look forward and find some new players finally to replace him.
And I'm surprised that Lazio made the signing immediately, right? Lucas Leiva have signed with Lazio, is going to do medicals, etc. So that was pretty much fast. Usually it takes a month before Lazio find a replacement.
Yeah, and well, it's not confirmed yet, so we need to be a little bit careful here, but it does sound like it's going to be confirmed tomorrow when he has his medical and everything. We put up a poll about this earlier this week, and actually it's turned out to be the closest one we've ever done, which was basically just on people's thoughts about him, Lucas Leiva, replacing Biglia, and there was 51% said yes please, 49% said not for me. So opinions are very divided on this. I'll just read out a couple of the comments. We've got Yakubu Inua said yes, it's a great move. He doesn't think Biglia is a better player than Leiva. Gilio Dos Santos says it would be a good signing, not overwhelmed, but has no issue with it. Omar Baj also says he thinks Leiva is much better than Biglia in defending. So there's a fair few people who are quite positive about it, but also it's fair to say a few who haven't been quite so sold on it as well. Rami Elgeni, for example, I'm not a fan. Why is he coming to us? What are your thoughts on this, Vittorio, as a possible move?
Very likely. I think it's a good move because Biglia was fundamental for Lazio in recovering the ball. First year of Pioli, he was the top player in recovering ball in Serie A. Last season, he was one of the top 10. So Lazio don't need a playmaker, needs someone who is very good defending. And that's the top quality of Lucas Leiva. With Milinkovic, Parolo, Murgia, they can be the playmaker, and Lucas Leiva can be the wall in front of the defense. So I think it's a good move. Finally, Lazio is signing a player who is not unknown or a youngster, a player who doesn't come from second-tier division, a player that comes from a top team like Liverpool. So, all these things are very good for me. Of course, we don't have to forget that we needed a Vice Biglia as well, so I'm hoping they're going to sign another player as well in that position.
Yeah, for me, my thoughts on Leiva are this. Basically, I think as bringing in a defensive midfielder, he's a good one to bring in. Lots of European experience, Premier League experience, but it kind of ties into discussions we've had before about Danilo Cataldi, in that it's very hard to replace Biglia because he creates and he defends so well. So I don't know. My concerns here are, if anybody's considering Lucas Leiva as a Biglia replacement, he just isn't, because he doesn't provide the same kind of confidence on the ball that Biglia does. And also, another concern is the amount of money that he's going to take out of the wage budget. So reportedly about 2.5 million per season, which would make him one of our highest paid players, which isn't necessarily the end of the world. It's probably a pay cut for him coming from Liverpool. But is that money not better spent on filling positions that we obviously need filled before we get a defensive midfielder, like a Vice Immobile, which we've talked about before, or a replacement for Keita if he goes?
I don't know. He's an experienced player. He's going to be very useful in the locker room. So I think that's the price you should pay those type of players, unfortunately.
I'm worried that if it's a change of strategy and Leiva sits in that holding position next season in the place of Biglia, we really struggled for creativity at times last season when Biglia was in the team. So if you take him out and put Lucas Leiva in, where suddenly, I don't know, a bit light on options in terms of people who are going to create chances for Immobile. Someone we've been linked with a bit recently is Mario Pasalic. I think he would be quite a good option if we could get him on a loan from Chelsea with the option to buy at the end of the season. He did quite well with Milan last season. He's still young, quite promising, creative player, scores goals. If we can bring in someone like that, so someone more attack-minded, him and Sergei, for example, either side of a player like Lucas. But I think if you put Lucas in for Biglia right now, with Parolo, Milinkovic, Lulic around him, I think we're going to struggle a bit to actually create many chances.
I don't agree, because even last year Biglia wasn't created that much chances. He left more this job to Parolo, Felipe Anderson and Milinkovic. But you were talking about Pasalic. That it looks like the discussion with Chelsea is a very good status. They're talking about 1 million for the loan and 10 for next year to buy the player. So that could be a very good option, because I like him. He did very well in a terrible Milan, and he's young. He already knows Serie A. He could be a very good option, better surely than Di Gennaro.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Di Gennaro, it seems, is more just the guy who's going to come if and when Cataldi goes, by the looks of things. I do think that Lucas is a good addition to the team, don't get me wrong. I just think that we do need some more spark in this team than we have at the moment, particularly if we lose Keita, which could still so easily happen. I know what you say. Biglia didn't necessarily contribute lots of assists and so on last season, but that's not really the point. He's just such a comfortable player with the ball at his feet. He knows how to pick out the pass, the guy on the wing, to hit Immobile with a long ball. He's capable of putting those moves together, whereas Leiva strikes me as more of a player he'll win the ball back, but then he'll distribute it short to someone who has better technical ability. And when you have a player like that in midfield, it'll slow things down a lot more and put a lot more pressure on the rest of the midfield to create.
We'll see. Now it's Luis Alberto playing that position. I don't think it's his position at all, but Inzaghi is testing him while we're waiting for a replacement for Biglia. What's your thought about that?
Well, yeah, we've actually had a question. Arvid actually got in touch with us about this as well, saying, is it wishful thinking or is it a good idea? We'll see. I mean, we're actually recording this just about half an hour before Lazio kick off their friendly against the mighty top 11 radio club. But Luis Alberto is starting in that position for that game. So it's quite hard to say, just because we haven't really seen an awful lot of Luis Alberto anyway, really. He's a good technical player, so I suppose he's kind of the opposite from what I've just said about Lucas Leiva in having someone in that position, because you can imagine Alberto being someone who can spread passes around and have a more attacking, creative control on the game, but you can't really imagine him being someone who's going to be snapping into tackles and charging down counterattacks and things like that. So I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him do really well in these kind of warm-up games against top 11 radio club and so on, but I'd be quite surprised if when the competitive games start he's still being used in that position.
I think he will struggle to defend. So if the idea of Simone Inzaghi is to play him near Lucas Leiva, that could be an option. because Lucas Leiva could defend and he could do the playmaker. He's a trequartista, so he's very good with the ball. And maybe playing a couple of meters behind could help him to provide good balls for Felipe Anderson, Keita and the others. We'll see. I think with Luis Alberto, the problem is he doesn't fit very well in the 3-5-2, if not in the middle position of the three midfielders. So I think Inzaghi's trying to find a position for him, but I don't think he's the replacement of Biglia because he hasn't got that defend part of the job Biglia was doing.
No, and I think Inzaghi was always going to have to reshape his midfield because of Biglia leaving anyway, because he was capable of that dual role. So it'll be quite interesting to see how he intends to do that in the long term, if that will result in the 3-5-2 being seen more or less. But I think we do definitely still need somebody else in. I'll be very disappointed if it's Leiva in, Biglia out, and that's the end of it. I think we definitely still need another more attacking midfielder before the end of the summer.
I totally agree, and we already were missing Vice Biglia, so I think that position is still a gap in Lazio. So I think someone will come.
Yeah, and say if someone like Pasalic does come in, then you have Leiva, Pasalic, Sergei, Parolo, Murgia, possibly Cataldi, who knows. It's Lulic as well, obviously playing in that midfield three. So it's looking like starting to look more promising as soon as you just add one more, good name into that list.
Absolutely, you're talking about a quality player, so it makes things much better.
Something else, while we're on the subject of this Lazio team that's lined up today. So they are playing in the 3-5-2 system, and we've had quite a long but very good question from Stefano Forte about this. So he's asking about the 3-5-2 being the main tactic used in training this week. He says, my issue is whether or not this tactic actually fits our players well. It seems like there will be no place in the team for Felipe Anderson unless he plays as one of the top two, and even in that case, Keita would need to be dropped. Surely we need the two of these guys on the pitch as much as possible. Now, the team today, Felipe Anderson is playing up alongside Immobile as part of the two. Vittorio, do you think that will be his role in that team, and do you think that's a role that suits him? And also the fact that he's starting up there alongside Immobile today, is that a suggestion that Keita were kind of already playing without Keita?
I think that in this, with the 3-5-2, if Keita leaves, it's going to be missed less than in the 4-3-3. I think Felipe Anderson playing near Immobile in a more central position could help Felipe because he can be more dangerous in the box and could arrive with more energy in the box. So that could help Felipe Anderson. But at the same time, you have to consider that next year Lazio will be playing in 3 competition. So thinking about playing Felipe Anderson, Immobile and Keita all the time together is not possible. Probably Keita will play in Serie A, Felipe Anderson in Europe League and so on. So I think with the 3-5-2, Inzaghi have more option and the team can be a little bit more balanced. So I wouldn't be too dramatic saying that this means that Keita is leaving. I think they're going to split some time between Europe League and Serie A, and maybe that's the position that can help Felipe Anderson becoming more and more a quality player, top player, a player who makes a difference. While if he's playing far away from the box, he tends to lose himself. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, I was quite glad to see Stefano send this question in, actually, because this was something I've been thinking about this week, about the 3-5-2 system. Because essentially it doesn't, at first glance seem that Anderson has a very natural position here, and he was tried as a right wing back last season, and I think he learnt some very important lessons in terms of discipline and tracking back and being a part of the team. But I don't think that's his role. I don't think he's best suited. I agree with you completely that he's the further away from the goal. Yeah, that's a surprising one for you there, but the further away from the goal he is, the less impact he seems to have on a game. Now, a lot of people might say since he joined Lazio he's played on the wing, so how effective would he be in a top two? But that is where he made his name, I suppose, at Santos, playing as a number 10 behind Neymar. So it's not a completely unusual position for him to be in. And in fact, he might get more opportunities to influence the game than he does on the wing. But it's quite hard to say. You don't want to make him unhappy, do you? Because if he doesn't work out in a top two and there suddenly isn't space for him in the team, he's going to say, well, I'm supposed to be one of the stars of this team, and now I'm suddenly not even getting into it. So adding to the trio we've talked endlessly about this summer, you might suddenly have an unhappy Felipe Anderson on top of that, unless he does flourish in that position behind Immobile.
Yeah, but one thing we have to consider is that he was the top assist of the team playing on the wing. Imagine how many assists he could provide if he was playing closer to the box and closer to Immobile. That's another thing that maybe Inzaghi thought about.
Possibly, but I suppose you could argue it's easier to provide assists from the wing because you get more crossing opportunities, whereas it's a completely different role. And he is quite a small guy, and he can get bullied out of games. And there's a lot less space in there. And, Serie A is obviously a very difficult league, and it takes, over the years, it's taken some pretty extraordinary players to stand out in a number 10 role in Serie A. So it's definitely worth experimenting with, but I do have a slight fear about that as well as Stefano, in terms of it not being a formation that really suits him.
And one thing we mustn't forget is that Inzaghi tend to change formation during the match. So now he's trying the 3-5-2, but this doesn't mean he's never going to play 4-3-3. I think, considering the Europe League, that he will have to make a lot of subs, that probably this will be the position, the tactics he's going to use most. But I still believe he's going to try 4-3-3 in some matches.
Yeah, I'm sure he will. It's just like Stefano said, it's at Auronso so far it seems to have been very much 3-5-2, all the training sessions with back threes, and that is the way he seems to be wanting to set his team up at the moment. And you can understand why, because he did have some good results against big teams playing in that system last year. But I think the more flexible the team can be, the better, really, which is one of the main uses of a guy like Adam Maricic coming in, who's playing at left wing back today. He introduced himself when he was signed as a right back, but he's playing on the left today, so he's already showing the kind of versatility that we're going to have to demand from him probably in the season to come.
Yeah, he's very useful because he can play in left, he can play right wing, right back, so he's going to be a very useful player, and I think he's going to play a lot. Alistair, I'm a little bit excited because finally we have a friend joining us.
We do. Are you going to do the introduction, or
Absolutely. I'm pleased to have Michael Di Mascio here from Canada. Michael, welcome.
Thank you, guys. It's nice to be amongst friends, right? We need friends in all times, but especially now during the Mercato, where you need somebody to talk you off the ledge. When you don't see players coming in, you only see players going out.
Michael, I'm curious. How you become a Lazio fan? What happened?
It started in 2002. I mean, in Canada, we have Serie A on. It actually performed a lot better in the TV ratings since I was a little boy. But we would see the usual teams, Inter, Milan, Juventus, every Sunday. And then one year I went to Italy for the first time with my dad, and he took me to the game to watch Lazio play against Chelsea. It was an amicable, a friendly against Chelsea before the emergence of the Russian money that they had. But we sat in the Curva Nord at Stadio Flaminio, beautiful, the best way to watch the game, I think you've said before, and I agree with you, Vittorio. And we watched the game there. Lazio won, Stankovic scored, I think Inzaghi scored. It was a great game, and that was the battesimo, and we moved forward like that.
Not bad, not bad. And how many Lazio fans are there in Canada, and how did the club start?
The club started, there's a lot of Lazio fans. The problem here in Canada is some of them are afraid to admit it because we are outnumbered by all the part-time fans, I like to call them, of the other teams. They only show up when they want to. Yeah, exactly, the part-time fans. Tifosi part-time. And so the club was started, actually not by me, by another gentleman, Mark. And it started off in 2006, I want to say. There was just so much interest in it. And that was right around the time that there was Carlo Baldassarre, who was trying to buy Lazio before Claudio Lotito bought it. He's a very wealthy home builder here in Canada, and he's a Lazio fan, but he wasn't able to purchase it. So there was a bit of interest. I think he had actually had a party, too, when Lazio won the Scudetto in 2000. So we kind of went from there, a small group of 3 or 4 guys, and then it started to grow and grow with the website that they launched, and then it kind of continued because when I got involved, I got linked up with Paolo Peroso, Signore Ermetico, who brought a lot of the English-speaking Lazio fans together in a syndicate through his show, and then I continued a Lazio show, sort of like this one, called The North Curve. He had done the Eagle's Nest, and it kind of continued from there, and the overall interest actually grew within Canada too because of the show, and I got to meet people within Canada, and we started moving around from different social club to social club. We're on our 3rd one now. We continually get kicked out. People don't like the Lazio fans, I guess. I guess we're a rowdy bunch, but we have a new place now. It's called the Supino Social Club, and that's where we get together to watch the games, play bocce, drink a cappuccino, drink a beer, and just overall complain about Lazio together, sort of like a psychiatrist office, and we air our grievances about the club together.
That's kind of how I view this podcast as well. It's a bit of a psychiatrist office for me.
Yes, exactly. It feels good to let it go, right? Just get it off your chest and air those grievances.
Yeah, exactly. It's great to hear that story, actually, because one thing that stood out for us so far since we started this, obviously it's still quite early days for us, but the amount of people we've had asking questions from all over the world, really, so it's fantastic. I think you guys are setting a great example of actually managing to get communities of Lazio fans together in one place, so well done to you.
Yes, absolutely.
You bridge the gap, and they're friends for life. But Lazio in Canada, Lazio Club Canada has a lot of work if we want to catch up to our friends in Indonesia. Those guys set the bar very high, and now we have Lazio Club in New York too, who look like very organized and look really good. But we've done some really good things in the past. One thing I just want to mention and highlight is what we did last year after the earthquakes. We were able to mobilize in 48 hours and do a Bucatini alla Matriciana party with Juve fans and Lazio fans together, and we got a lot of publicity here in Toronto, and strangers came off the street to the social club and donated money, and we made pasta pretty much for everybody, and we watched the Lazio Juventus game at the beginning of the season last year, and we raised a bunch of money that we were able to send back to Italy. So those are one of the most proud moments I have of our club, and how we were able to mobilize in like 48 hours, because the earthquake happened on the Wednesday, and by the Saturday, we were already having the party.
Wow. Very good. Congratulations.
Superb, yeah.
Talking about the transfer market, what's your thoughts on Lazio first moves?
No surprise. This is Lazio. This is the way it goes. I wish every year was like the year that Klose came in, and Cisse and Lulic, and we had all these people coming in, but to be honest with you, I don't know the Milan model of buying everybody. I don't know if that's going to serve them so well to start the season, because when you start bringing in 8 or 9 guys to a team, it's going to be hard to gel. I know we lost Lucas Biglia, our captain. Forza Lazio, guys, especially. Thank you, Forza Lucas. Thank you for that and making my day today. But it just shows you where the sentiment really is in soccer today, that nobody really cares about their club. So I'm not happy with the initial start, but I'm glad he's gone. Not because we don't need him. It would be great to have him as a player, but the minute you have an unhappy player, you have to move him out. You have to move him out, and that's one less person we have to worry about that doesn't want to be here. So based on the options and based on the model, the Lotito model, buy low, sell high, I guess we can say, or sell for nothing after legal battles. This is the way it goes, and it looks like Lucas Leiva is going to come in, and I'm not upset about it. I don't know what else to say with regards to that. There's really not a lot of options out there for a regista midfielder that we wanted. That is in our price range. So for this, I get it. I hope now that we've removed some of the salary that we were going to give to Lucas, that we can back the truck up and maybe turn one of those unhappy players into a happy player, perhaps, like a Keita, because they called him to Aronso for a reason. If he wasn't going to be part of this team, I think they would have left him in Rome to train on his own, like they've done in the past with so many players. So as it stands now, this is where we're at. I would love to add another striker because, let's be honest, Pipovic is not going to do it for us as a second striker. And we know we can't count on Immobile to stay healthy for the whole year. Last year was a miracle that he was able to play so many games. We really need somebody to back him up.
Do you feel frustrated when you see players like Biglia, for example, who play for your team but never smile, never put that passion that Afan, especially away from Italy, feels for Lazio?
Absolutely, but I used to start to change. I never liked Lucas Biglia for the beginning, but that was my own personal reasons, because I was a Christian Ledesma fan, and I always thought that he gave everything to Lazio, and when Biglia came in, he pushed him out. And I always wished that somehow they could work together, but it just wasn't possible. So for me, it always started off on the wrong foot. I started to come around when I would see Biglia on the bus, not talking to anybody and kind of just focusing. I thought he was concentrated on the game, when in truth he was probably just concentrated on who's going to sign his next paycheck. And that's kind of where we're at, unfortunately. So there's the two extremes. You have the Keita, Felipe Anderson extreme, where they just want to party all day and they want to show everybody how great their life is. And then you have Lucas Biglia, who doesn't show really much anything. He does cry on the field a lot, we know that, but are they real tears, or are they just crocodile tears like Hernandez?
One thing that stood out, and I never really liked the idea of Biglia being given the captaincy, because it seemed that the idea at the time that it was more of a strategic decision by Lotito and so on to actually keep him at the club rather than him being a good leader. But when you were talking before about him, the way it's been handled, I suppose it does reflect a lot worse on him than when the summer began, because Keita has come in for a lot of criticism for his character, the way he's handled his contract and so on. But you see him now at Aronso, he's very involved in the training sessions. He's laughing and joking with the players. He's like hitching rides on bikes of passing fans and so on. So just despite everything that's happened with Keita, he actually seems to be handling it in a good way. He's involved and he's training hard by the looks of things.
I think Keita is very different. The team around Keita is terrible. Keita himself, he's a nice guy, and he grew, let's say like this, in the Lazio squad with the Primavera. So I think it's more his agent that is pushing him away than he really wants to quit. Don't know if you agree.
My opinion on Keita is this: we can't afford to lose him. There's certain players that can come and go, but based on his age, based on his potential, and based on the fact that he's a homegrown player, like you said, Vittorio, through the Primavera, that is so important when you're playing on two fronts like a European competition. That is a roster spot that doesn't have to be taken up when you're a homegrown player. And for me, I really think they should back the truck up and keep the smile on his face, because a happy Keita is a happy Lazio. And he will play better. And we saw just the potential of him this year. He's really starting to explode now, and he doesn't have the same sort of defects, I guess we could say, as Felipe Anderson, where Felipe Anderson, you get a stellar game one day, and then you'll get 3 games where he's sad again and he's not happy and he hasn't found his form. So Keita is a little bit more consistent in that way, whether he's coming off the bench or whether he's starting. So I don't think that's a player we can really afford to lose. And I think Lotito should do and find the economical means to keep a star like that.
And Michael, while we've got you here as well, what are your thoughts on the third of these big high-profile players with contracts running out? What do you think about Stefan de Vrij and the possibility of him leaving the club? Would that be, in your eyes, a big issue for us next season? And what kind of transfer fee would you be happy with?
I think people are starting to see the true de Vrij in the sense that at first when he came, we thought he was the greatest defender since Nesta, for example, just saying that as an example. But slowly, between the injuries and I think in some of his mental lapses, like the derby this year, where he cost us single-handedly a goal, people are starting to realize that we can live without him and we can find another defender. Really, the Lazio defense hasn't really been strong since Biava left. And was strong then. We haven't really found the cohesion quite since then. I wouldn't be surprised if Stefan de Vrij stays right till the end of the year and they find some sort of economical extension for him. He hasn't really committed himself to the club. I guess by signing a long-term deal, it will be his intention to stay. But I think he's one of those players that we can definitely move on from. You can find another Stefan de Vrij and, it's Italy after all. They should have learned how to defend by now. That's what I always find strange when it's been 3 or 4 years that these defenders have played here in Italy, and they always complain the first year that it's hard to learn the movements and change the tactics of where they were before. But we're going on to his 4th season now. I think, this is a make or break season for him.
I think one thing very important about De Vrij is that Bastos can play in his position. He didn't play that much last season. Heard have improved a lot. Wallace is a decent defender, not very great, but still able to play for Lazio. So if De Vrij leaves, that wouldn't be that bad. The truth is, no offer still came for De Vrij. Even the rumors about Liverpool are not true. So I think the problem is he's still there because he still didn't receive any offer. So we'll see what happened. But Michael, I wanted to talk to you about Paolo Di Canio. In the last days, he's doing a tournament, a 5-a-side tournament, and he spoke again about Lazio. What's your thought about Paolo Di Canio?
Paolo Di Canio is an interesting guy. If you've read his book, you would think that he lives and breathes Lazio all the time. When you meet Paolo Di Canio, it's not quite the same feeling. At least from my personal experience of meeting Paolo Di Canio. You're right, he's starting to talk about Lazio again, and of course never positively. And that's since he's left, he hasn't said a positive word about Lazio. We know he had the falling out with Lotito. Paolo Di Canio will remain probably a hero of the Curva Nord forever, and I still enjoy watching the videos of him scoring in the derby, don't get me wrong, but I don't understand why he at every turn has to bash Lazio. Since he got fired, he seems like he wants to talk about them a lot more since he got fired from his TV job. But I was fortunate or unfortunate enough to meet him 2 summers ago in Toronto. He was here doing a similar sort of tournament with the Legends of Italy, playing the Legends of Portugal, and we saw Fernando Couto there as well. And we got a chance to meet some of these people. And being part of the press like I am here in Toronto, I had some privileges to speak to him. And once again, I got told a story about Di Canio when he first came back to Lazio, something to do with Swedish fans and a knife. Something happened along those lines. I won't get into too many of the specifics because I don't know all the details, but I did meet Di Canio. He signed my Lazio jersey, my Di Canio jersey, and he wrote Palocca on it, like I had asked him to, because that is his nickname from his town. And then I started asking him, why do you hate Lazio so much? Like, why can't you come back? Why do you have to be this way? I kind of did pester him a little bit about it, and he told me that I was making him very angry. and that I should step away from him. So he didn't really appreciate my comments, whether they were in Italian or English. I tried going both routes with him, but he's still a fiery guy. He did oblige and take a photo with all the Lazio legends that were there that day. Massimo Odo, Nestor Sensini was there, and Bruno Giordano. We took a lovely photo together. He held up the Forza Lazio scarf, but that was about it from him. He didn't want to talk to me anymore. I said, there's always a space for you here to come back, regardless of your problems with Lotito. I said, we need you. I said, really, we could use the fire, the passion, because like you said, we don't have that. We've been missing that since Christian Brocchi left the team. And selfishly, we lost it too when Onazzi left. He wasn't quite the same player. We didn't lose a great player in Onazzi, but we lost a great man and somebody who was good for the locker room. And I developed a good friendship as well with Onazzi, and I do miss him a lot. And I think those type of characters are something that you can't put a price tag on, and you need those players around your club for the Keitas of the world. And that's kind of what Lulic said when Lucas Leiva would come in. He said, we need somebody like this, somebody with experience, somebody to organize this team.
I totally agree. And the strange thing is, you spoke about Oddo. Oddo as well didn't leave Lazio in a very positive way, but he's always very thankful for Lazio every time he posts pictures about Lazio, etc. So there's something about Di Canio. I mean, if you say you are a Lazio fan, a real Lazio fan, after a couple of years, you should forget this thing and start supporting the club again. But never. Even when Lazio win, he always have to say something bad about it, which is disappointing, especially from a player like him,
Absolutely.
Yeah, something we talked about last week. It's quite interesting that we've gone from basically saying happy birthday to Paolo Di Canio last week into having a go at him now. But that was something we mentioned in what you were saying there, Michael, about the lack of passion in this Lazio team, and that really is an issue that needs to be resolved. So the experience, I suppose, and the leadership that Lucas Leiva would bring in is something that's not to be ignored. But in my opinion, I think the leadership that Lucas Biglia had is a bit overhyped. Yes, he was a captain, but I don't think, like you were saying, I don't think he was a leader or a kind of guy who gets people fired up,
Not at all. I don't think he was speaking a lot in the locker room.
No, I was going to say that's a great segue into who should be the next captain, because Stefano Pioli really screwed this up when he put the armband on him, because if you think about it, that was kind of a key moment that turned all of this. It upset Candreva and started the exodus of all the players. So who should be the next captain? History tells us it's the player with the most appearances, but that would make it for Stefan Radu. And he should have been the captain a few times over if we were going by that model. But he hasn't been picked the captain. And for me, that is another indicator that maybe within the club, they don't really see him as a true leader. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but for me, there's a telltale sign there that every time he gets passed over to be the captain, sure, he's the vice captain when the player leaves the field, but it's not quite the same.
Maybe he doesn't want to be the captain. Maybe he thinks he's not a leader, but he has the experience. Honestly, I would go with Lulic. But
my only problem with Lulic is the fact that he's not going to be playing every game, and in the way that, no one's going to be playing every game, but from what you kind of see online, it seems like it's going to be between Lulic and Parolo. And if it was that choice for me, I'd probably go with Parolo, because I think he's more likely to be in the team more often, give a sense of stability. We all love Lulic, but his ability to actually keep a place in this team next season, I'm not convinced he's going to be having an awful lot of game time.
I think he's going to play much more than you expect.
Me too.
But where, though?
He can play in different positions.
Yeah, I know he can play in a lot of positions in the 3-5-2 and the 4-3-3, but I don't think there's any one position in that team, if it was Lazio's strongest 11, that you would put him into.
I agree that he's not the best defender. I usually cringe when he plays on the left back and he has to support the defense, because we know his mind is to go forward and attack. But if we're going based on the model that we need a captain that will light a fire under the team's ass and really care about the team and show passion. You can't look any further than him, and that's the reason why I say it should be Lulic as well. Not even for his sheer ability to play, because we've had some captains that weren't elite players. Christian Brocchi, Tommaso Rocchi, for example, they were captains, or they were bandiera at least, and they had the ability to really get the team going, I think, and Lulic has that potential. We see how much he cares about this club, just from his words and his actions on the field. So from that aspect, if I have to pick over Parolo, I would pick Lulic. Parolo seems more of a guy who just wants to have fun too. He's more of the Keita, Felipe Henderson model. He likes to party, not party, but he likes to enjoy and joke around, and he's kind of silly.
Honestly, seeing what happened with the last captains of Lazio, I will give it to Djordjevic. Maybe that's the time that finally we're going to sell him. Who knows?
Try a new tactic.
If whatever it takes. But we can keep his wife as long as he goes.
Well, I don't think she's staying, but Djordjevic, and sell him in August. Give more chance to. Honestly, we're going to see. Well, I think Inzaghi is going to put the last word on the captain. But my dream, I don't know if you agree, would be to see Murgia maybe in 2 years' time, the new captain, or someone from the Primavera that shows he have the quality.
Two years ago, when Biglia was made captain, remember there was. I think La Lazio Siamo Noi puts up a poll for fans, and thousands of fans voted in it about who should be the next captain. And it was Candreva, Radu, Klose, and Cataldi at the time. And Cataldi got a good chunk of the votes in that. So that goes to show how quickly things can change, because Cataldi at that point was very much being seen as a future captain. And it's
I think
you need to be careful with Murgia.
I think he finished in a couple of matches with the captaincy. So, again, Cataldi, I don't know what you think about. I mean, why is he not in Oronzo still? I think he should be given a chance.
From what I hear around some of my friends that are close to Rome, is he was a pain in the ass to Inzaghi last year in January, trying to ask for more playing time, and I think a real pain in the ass, and Inzaghi moved on quickly from him, and now the problem is we need him back as a midfielder. He seems if he can regain maybe the trust of the coach, or the appreciation of the coach, I think he would be a good asset to have. I mean, the strange thing about Cataldi was he wasn't never a dominating player when he was on the field. I didn't really see a potential to be a regista or some sort of attacking midfielder, even for that matter. So I hope for Lazio's sake, because we need the midfielders now more than ever, that he'll stay and he'll be able to patch or mend the fence with Inzaghi. But it sounds more like that was a problem internally, and it looks now like Luis Alberto is going to be our regista until we find somebody else, which will be interesting for him, because he has another make or break season where maybe he could be our best signing of the year. We didn't really get a chance to see much of him last year, so I'm curious to see how he performs as well this season.
Do you agree that the first season of Cataldi there was too much hype on him? I'd never seen him perform that well as everybody was saying.
And the Lazio fan base is so volatile too, because I actually went to the derby last March, so over a year ago now, the one that was quite empty, and Lazio unfortunately lost. I have a terrible derby record, by the way, we should put out there. The two derbies that I went to ended in defeat for Lazio, so now I'm banned from the Olimpico for derbies. I need to start again against a Cagliari, or I need to go and watch them play somebody else, a weaker opponent, because I can't go and watch these games. But when I went there, the fans, they're volatile. We know this, the Curva Nord. But they really gave it to Cataldi that day in the derby because he performed subpar. And they really gave it to Marchetti. So those are two guys, ironically, that have been pushed out of the club now. So I can't tell you. 1 minute they loved Cataldi, but by March of 2016, they were already starting to turn against him at the end of last season, 2 seasons ago. Sorry.
Well, we'll see. Again, Cataldi is not here at the moment, so We're going to see if he's going to still be with Lazio this season or going on loan somewhere else. Michael, thank you very much for joining us. And if you want to join us in the future, you're more than welcome.
The door's open for me, are you sure?
Absolutely. You can replace Alistair whenever you want.
Hey, I'm still here, you know.
Oops.
We just got to bridge the time gap a little bit so I can get my cappuccino first, and we start like that.
Absolutely.
The time difference is the only thing that's saving me at the moment. So.
Yeah, but especially when Lazio play late at night, you can join after the match.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you guys doing this and having me on, but more so for keeping the English Lazio talk alive. It is a lot of work. I know people don't understand that just listen, but it is a lot of work to put together a podcast and continually keep the content fresh. And that's ultimately why I stopped doing mine. It was just too much. So Vittorio, Alistair, complimenti to you guys. Continue the good work.
Thank you very much. Thanks for joining.
Forza Lazio, guys.
Ciao, ciao.
Okay, well, it's been a bumper episode this week, but we've got one more question we're going to get through today before we finish up. From Tom Sheldrick. He's asking, are there any players you guys expect to take a step up this season prior to the World Cup? I'm looking at Holt, Lukaku or Felipe. Well, Lukaku we've talked about before, actually, and he was the guy that I've previously said that I think he could be having a very good season coming up. I don't know who's standing out for you, Vittorio.
I loved Lukaku in last season. I think he still can improve. But thinking about the national team, I think Höder, Felipe Anderson could be the players that will try to make the best. We know the dream of Felipe Anderson is to play in the national team. So maybe he'll try to do his best this season to get a little bit of attention of the national coach and finally get the first call for the Brazilian squad. So I expect a lot from Felipe Anderson, and Höder already have been called, and I think he hasn't got that much competition in the Netherlands squad, and it would be really cool to have two Lazio defenders playing together in the Netherlands squad. So I would say Felipe Anderson and Höder, and maybe a youngster, maybe Murcia start playing more and get the attention of Ventura, who is always very careful and like to see youngster performing well in Serie A. So maybe Murcia could be the surprise.
Yeah, like you say, it's good to see that. I mean, Hurt and De Vrij have already played together for the Netherlands in a friendly this summer, I think. And one other guy, an obvious guy, I suppose, is Milinkovic-Savic, because he's hardly got a look in for Serbia squad so far. I'm not actually sure how close or not Serbia are to qualifying. I know they're in that very tight group with Ireland and Wales. But should Serbia qualify, surely they've got to bring Sergei with them to the World Cup. So he would be one you can imagine would be a potential kind of a relatively unknown World Cup star. One other guy I think is quite interesting. We're not sure how much he's going to play or get a chance, or if he'll go out on loan or not, but Oikonomidis, for a guy who's hardly played for Lazio, has been in and out of the Australia team quite a lot. Again, I'm very sorry, but I'm not sure how close or not Australia are to qualifying. But you can imagine if Oikonomidis got a few run of a few games for Lazio this season and got in the Australia squad, it'd be quite interesting seeing a player like that, what kind of impact that would have on his confidence and so on to go to a major tournament.
Absolutely. I think this must be the breakout season for Oikonomidis. He spent 2 seasons on loan. He didn't perform very well. I know Inzaghi knows him very well. He played for Inzaghi, so I think he can have some play time with Lazio this season. If a big player doesn't come, Lazio doesn't buy a big striker. So we'll see. And as you were saying, Australia doesn't have that many options at the moment. So Oikonomidis, who already played for the national squad, could find some time and with the national team, I think he would be very happy. Let's see what happened with if he stays at Lazio. That would be the question.
The other thing as well, I suppose, is that you're kind of not sure how to feel in a World Cup season, because you want your players to perform well, obviously, but then you don't necessarily want them to put themselves in the shop window when it comes to the World Cup. So it gives you a sense of pride, but then it does also bring a lot more interest from other clubs, I suppose. So, interesting.
What I would be more concerned is when they come back for the training, because if they do the World Cup, then they'll miss the starting of the summer training camp. So, they'll have time to recover. Maybe they won't be ready for the start of the season. It's always a nightmare when you have a lot of players that plays the World Cup and so start the season very late. So I wouldn't be that sad if Lazio didn't have too many players in the World Cup. Don't know if you agree.
Yeah, and the other obvious one, I suppose, is Ciro Immobile, who's, him and Bellotti have got a good fight on to start for Italy, I suppose. And if you have a team like Italy, who traditionally are just a pretty good tournament team, so you always back them to get relatively far. So, yeah, there are plenty of guys in that Lazio squad that you'd expect to have a good shot at reaching the World Cup. But for me, if I was going to put my colours to the mast and say who's going to be our breakout star this season, I'm going Jordan Lukaku.
Okay, I think Felipe Anderson. And don't forget that Strakosha is going to fight for his place in the national squad with Berisha. So that could be interesting too.
Absolutely. But there's one caveat to that. I'm going Jordan Lukaku as long as we keep playing 3-5-2. Otherwise, no.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to play a lot if Lazio play 4-3-3.
Exactly. Well, let's hope he doesn't.
Alistair, this has been a very, very long podcast. It was really fun to have our first guest joining us, but I think we have to wrap it up here. Don't know if you agree.
I think it's probably a good idea if anyone's still awake. But like we've said before, if anybody else, like Michael, wants to come and join us on the show, just get in touch. Facebook, Twitter, all the usual ways, and we'll see what we can do to get you involved.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure to have Michael. If you want to join us, just ask. And subscribe to our YouTube channel, to our iTunes, on Spreaker, on Facebook, and on Twitter. And Forza Lazio, as Biglia said to the Milan fans. Goodbye, Alistair. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks. See you next time.
Bye-bye.